do it for you.
Baby, you forgive me. Yeah, baby, I'm baby, come down to the let me show you how to
What's up? What's up? What's up? Hey, it is Thursday night, so you know what that means. It is time for the Floor is Yours podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back again for another one. It's my best DJ Khaled impression. Another one. I gotta work on it. But yeah, we back here. I'm a little off. Give me a little time. I'm gonna perfect it. But we're back again for the Floor is Yours podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, tell everyone you know. Look in your contact list. Call everybody that you text message in the last 48 hours. Let everybody know. The Floor is Yours podcast is on. So tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your baby mama, tell someone to tell everybody that the Floor is Yours podcast is on. I could not do this by myself. Of course, I got the other half of the G Unit. He is on fire tonight, so that's why he's wearing red. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gerard Flex, the producer, where is in the house? What's up, my Negro?
Man, you crazy, man. What's up, great people? What's up, Gregory, man? You know, it's one of my favorite days of the week. You know, I value all the time, but man, anytime I can share the screen, and of course with Misha's sister, but anytime I share the screen with y'all, man, it's a pleasure. So
that it is.
Looking forward to this.
You know, the magic about the Floor is Yours podcast is that it's like coming home and talking to families, like talking to people that care about you and care about what's going on in your world. And, you know, and that's what we're here to do. Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw the new intro for the Floor is Yours. And so what you got to see there was it's not just about us, but you see us in the community. You see us huddled up around people and because we care about not just the good conversations, but the call to action that God has given us and the unity within our own community. So we're happy to be here once again for another great, insightful conversation. You know, it is our desire and mission to bring real and relevant conversations to you week after week. And tonight, we got another one for you that I believe is a big epidemic in our community. And tonight we're going to talk about forgive but retain your dignity, the truth about boundaries and grace. And so forgiveness is the topic today. And so we're going to approach it from a 360 tonight, Gerard. You know, we're going to talk about forgiveness as a collective, because as human beings, we all go through it. You can't make it through life without being offended. Eventually, it is going to happen. So what do you do? And then we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we're going to talk about the particulars of being Black in America and forgiveness to our oppressors. What do we do as a people when it comes to the hardships, the injustice that we have? How do we release that anger and grant forgiveness for people who don't even care that they offended us? And so we're going to get into that a little bit later in the show. So stick around. But first,
just real quick, man, got to give a shout out to our followers, our listeners. I see people already saying hello in the comments, so I just want to make sure we shout them out, let them know, like, hey, the comments are important to us. I know Gregory always say that that's his favorite part of the show, and I feel the same way. So the comments, keep them coming, whether it's an agreement or a disagreement, question, whatever. Make sure you just let us know. We're gonna make sure we get to them.
Absolutely. We like it. Even if you don't agree with us, this is family, and we're talking like family. Family doesn't always agree, but we always give love. And so we love the comments. And so we appreciate the feedback that you give us. So I think first, before we talk, Floor family, we should define what is unforgiveness and what does that actually mean? Because we hear a lot about unforgiveness, and it's thrown around a lot of times. And I think sometimes people may get confused about what unforgiveness is. And so unforgiveness is holding someone hostage for a crime that that perceive that they committed against you. So it is a resentment that you are carrying around for something that is perceived. And so you see, I'm emphasizing the word perceived because a lot of times we get offended and there's unforgiveness that we carry from events that the other person didn't even know they brought upon us. I didn't know I offended you. I didn't recognize that this was an event that startled you. And so oftentimes we can be offended when the person was unintentional. And so we have to, I bring that up because a lot of times we are carrying offense that people don't even know that they committed against us. And that lingers a long time with us. And so if you spend any time on this earth, all of us have stories about a grade school teacher that embarrassed us in front of the class, someone that embarrassed us on the playground, or a coworker who maybe criticized some work that we did unintentionally, but it still carries with us.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about unforgiveness, one of the things about unforgiveness that resonates with all of us is not the fact that we're offended, but how long it lingers in life. And so a person who is good at recovering or granting forgiveness, it doesn't take long to bounce back. Now, that depends on, of course, the offense that has happened. But of course, the goal is to bounce back quickly. Now,
Yeah.
there's various degrees on and who it comes from. Who was the instigator? Was it a loved one? Was it maybe your children? Was it your parents? Was it a spouse or a relative? Versus someone who's not that intimately close to you. The bounce back portion can be easier if you perceive the person to be of value to you. And
Yeah.
so that's what we want to get into. A lot of it depends on who it is, but the cut also cuts deeper depending on who it is. So,
Yeah.
like in divorce, when a divorce happens, someone that you've shared your life, your money, your home, your time, your kids with, it's harder to forgive because they was the closest to you.
Yeah.
Have you ever been offended by someone, Gerard, knowingly or unknowingly by the other person?
Oh yeah, it's just part of life, right? And I like that you brought up the word quickly, and I'm
Yeah.
saying it because I think quickly is relative, right? It depends on the person, the situation, the circumstances, the offense. And we talked about with a good friend, I talked about what that looks like relative, right? Just say something egregious. You know, when
Hmm.
someone cuts you, hurt you deeply, like
Hmm.
betrayal, to
Yeah.
think that um the expectation to forgive based off how people think about it is the same for someone that showed up late to your party or didn't show up at all to your party, right? Where
There's
you was
levels to this, right?
right, yeah. So I think that's one thing, and the reason why I say that, Gregory, is because people often quote that scripture where it says we're to quickly forgive, and quickly in some people's mindset is like it's as soon as it happened, like you need to get past it, and that don't take into account that you're human and that
Hmm.
God gave you these emotions, and then these emotions are meant to protect you, right? If
Hmm.
someone hurts you and betrays you, and you just get past it like it's nothing, what's going to keep them from doing it again, right? And I'm just
Right.
saying because our emotions and help us with accountability, if you will. So if I think when you hold people accountable, that's love, right? The Bible says that He chastises those who He loves. So it's not absence of accountability. So I'm just saying, when you think about this whole mindset of quickly forgiving, I think people got to be careful of the unnecessary, unfair, unrealistic expectation on you to act like you know what you move past it quickly, and because it just happened yesterday or earlier today, later on today, you're supposed to move past it, and that's just not the case, and that's not what that scripture even means.
You said a whole lot. Forgiveness is a process. It's not a
Yes.
moment. It's not a switch you can flip and
It's not a
say,
moment.
abracadabra. I forgive you. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes seasons. Sometimes you may be able to forgive in a day. Sometimes it may take a week. Sometimes it may take a month. And for some people, it may take years. There's this new growing phenomenon, Gerard, that's happening. You've heard, of course, of ghosting people, right? You had a
Yeah.
bad date. You thought it went awful. You never want to talk to them again, so you ghost them. You block them. Well, this new phenomenon is happening where children are ghosting their parents and parents are ghosting their children because they see these relationships as being toxic, and largely because there's a lot of unforgiveness. And so we recognize that sometimes for your safety, you do have to separate for someone. I think what needs to be also explored is, when do you sever a relationship and when is it safe to return? Because there are moments and times where you can forgive, but you do need to sever the relationship. I like what Tupac said. He said, I just because I don't hang out with you anymore doesn't mean I don't want you to eat. Just means I don't want you to eat at my table.
Yeah, yeah. Was that a rap or just a
It was just a
statement?
quote he said. He said, yeah,
Okay.
"Oh, just no, it
Okay.
was just
That
because we
be
don't
hard.
talk. Yeah, just because we don't talk doesn't mean I don't want you to eat. I just
Yeah.
don't want you to eat at my table."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important concept, right? Because a lot of times, Gregory, people think that forgiveness means access. And we
Definitely
talked about
not.
that prior to the show. Like, I think that's one of the sticking points that people struggle with, not just the people doing the forgiving, but the people that's being forgiven,
Yeah.
right? If I'm receiving forgiveness from you and you say, Gerard, we're good, on that, and just try to move past that, that doesn't automatically mean like, hey, I can be back at your house in your vicinity in your space, right? Like it never happened. So
Yeah.
forgiveness doesn't mean access.
It doesn't. Yeah, because God has given us discernment, and depending on where that personal fail came in, that's the area where I probably would trust you the least. Be it
Yeah,
personal, be it professional, be it financial, but whatever, wherever it may have been, I know that now I got to create some boundaries around you. And uh, yeah, there is a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Those are two entirely separate things.
yeah.
I can forgive you, but it doesn't mean that we're reconciled. It doesn't mean that we're back friends again. I've just allowed myself to be free from you. But that doesn't mean I still want to hang out with you
That's
also.
an important point. You heard the saying that forgiveness is for yourself, right?
Hmm.
And it relieves the hurt, the hold, the control that betrayal or that harm did to you.
Hmm.
If you're thinking about, I like that you said it doesn't mean reconciliation,
Yeah.
but that's just a part of it. And I look at it as a 3-point step, right? And you don't have to agree with me, just how I look at it. It's forgiveness, there's reconciliation, but then there's also restoration. And the reason
Mm.
why I'm saying that is you can forgive somebody and actually reconcile a friendship. But that
Hmm.
reconciled friendship don't mean that you're fully restored to those benefits. And I like that you talked about if someone does something to you financially, right? Me and you are in business, Gregory, and I end
Hmm.
up causing the cash register drawer to come up $1,000 short, but
Mm.
everything else in that
Hmm.
business is popping. I got people coming in, money coming in. You might make the determination, like, you know what, Gerard, you bring some other benefits to this business, and maybe this ain't the best example, but if I bring other benefits, you like, you know what, you good with the promotion, but you can't touch that register again, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you reconcile their friendship for the sake of
Yeah.
the business, but being restored back to that position
Yeah.
might not be feasible, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that's wisdom, right? We want to walk in wisdom, and we definitely don't want to cast someone away if we have the capacity to restore, right? The Bible says, as much as it is in your power to walk in love with someone, and so if you can make that tweak and you can work it out, but it just looks a little different, then great. But then there was another example in the Bible where two of Jesus' disciples, Paul and Barnabas, were on a mission trip together, and they got in such a heated discussion that the Bible says they had to part ways. they couldn't even serve God together because they was so at odds with each other. And so sometimes there's a time when you can find common ground, but then there's sometimes when you got to stand your ground. And
Yeah.
so I think it just takes wisdom and discernment to know, okay, this has to look different because this event has changed us. And going forward, it has to look different. And I
Yes.
think that that is operating in wisdom.
Yeah. So let's
Um,
think real, man. Just in that with that mindset, let's go into some real life situation, at least one right now, because I think that's important context. All right. We talked about the forgiveness, the reconciliation, and restoration. One of the things that I've talked to several people about is parent wounds, right? And
mhm,
you and I, just been transparent.
yeah,
You've been transparent and forthcoming about your own,
yeah,
challenge in that space. But a parent,
yeah,
we hear people say all the time, like, "Hey, that's your mama, that's your dad,"
right,
or "Hey,
right.
you need to be forgiven because the Bible says to honor thy mother and father, and your days will be long."
Be
But
long. Yeah.
let's get into like, how do you process that? What are your expectations and your understanding on how to deal with parent wounds? And I'm not just talking about some strict parent. I'm talking about abandonment, physical abuse, even some that's done some of the unthinkable things like sexual assault, right? Those are some parent wounds that
Hmm.
are difficult, if even possible, to get past. But how would you counsel somebody in your space on how to deal
Yeah,
with some of those
yeah,
things?
yeah. You know what? That is such a great example because within the Black community, we tend to hold the position of mother in high regard. We tend to put moms on a pedestal. Even so much, I've seen moments where they're like at a deity level. Don't say nothing about mama. Your kids get into a fight on the playground if you say something about my mama. And so that relationship tends to be, to start off, a little bit dysfunctional to begin with, because nobody should hold the same position as God in your life. There should only be one God. And oftentimes we find that within the Black community, we put mothers in that position of a God-like person. So, how do you counsel someone like that? You have to examine their thinking and say, is your thinking led by culture or is it led by Christ? Are you led by what your neighbors have said, what you've heard in church? Like, so is this really by culture or is this really by Christ? And so Christ is very, very clear about that. Bad company corrupts good character. If you hang around fools, you will be like them. And so Christ, in a lot of his teachings, tells you to analyze the person that you're associating with above even their title. Because remember, it was Jesus whose greatest adversaries were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, were the church folk. And so Jesus is big on, hey, look at the person, not the position. And so what we do first want to understand, where's your perspective coming from? Who taught you that? Who told you that honoring your mother and your father that's written in the Bible means suffering? That's not the interpretation of that scripture at all. It doesn't mean to suffer. It just means to acknowledge that someone took care of you when you couldn't take care of yourself and be grateful and show gratitude to that. It doesn't say remain a victim. It says show gratitude that someone took care of you. Interpret it. Show gratitude that someone took care of you when you couldn't take care of yourself. I am grateful for that, but it doesn't mean to suffer.
Yeah, and I like
As,
you said, don't
mhm,
remain a victim. And I think that's an important distinction, right? When you try to figure out, because it can be tricky. It can be you're talking about the hierarchy in the community,
mhm,
especially in the Black community. Then you throw in other dynamics. You can be dependent on them
mhm.
for some aspects, and it subjects you to repeat abuse. But to your point, I like that you said that you're not expected to be to subject yourself to being a victim over and over and over.
Yeah,
You're not,
yeah.
again, sometimes this will be honest, it's not cut and dry. It's not an easy
It's not. It's
to
not easy.
separate from those
No,
things, right?
no, it's not. Our parents are programming us, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. I think when we become adults, we or teenagers, we tend to think, "I'm never going to be like my mom. I'm never going to be my dad." Well, they wrote the formula for who you are. Your parents know how to push your buttons because they gave them to you. And so there's a lot of internal wiring that goes on from that parental child relationship that, unbeknownst to you, it doesn't show up until your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s, and your 60s. For the rest of your life, you're tweaking and editing everything your parents showed you uh, growing up as a kid. It's not cut and dry. It really isn't, because our first response to a parent is to love them.
Yeah.
It generally is, and when you want that love, you tend to allow certain things to happen because you don't want to let go of what should be a very valuable um, relationship. However, I would tell anyone that you want to judge the closeness of your relationships not by position, but how healthy it is. Remove the title and ask yourself, is this healthy for me? And if it's not, create some boundaries. Boundaries for me, my favorite definition of boundaries is this: a boundary is the space that I need to love you and to love me simultaneously. It's the space that I need to love you and to love me at the same time. That's a boundary. That's what it is.
So let's talk
So even
about
with
this,
parents,
because I like that analogy you says we're loving both. So there's this concept, and we all heard it, that we love from afar. And I think
hmm
people struggle with that. Meaning, again, that's sometimes considered or interpreted as restoration. Like, hey, I got to allow you in my space. I got to allow you access to me. But isn't it? And tell me if you agree with this or not. Isn't it also loving to make sure you put space in between someone just so that bad things don't happen?
100%, 100%, because a healthy friendship or healthy relationship is one where you acknowledge there's danger. And so I don't love you unless I tell you you're about to slip or you're about to fall off a cliff or I'm here to protect you. Love is sometimes not always comfortable. Sometimes love is correcting. It's not always comforting. And so you do need some space with some people, because I know if I'm around Uncle Charlie too long at the family reunion, we're gonna get into it. So let me just spend 10 minutes with him and then I gotta go. It's important to know your limitations and your capacity with certain people. For some people, it could be because of maybe their political beliefs. I can only talk to you about politics for so long, then I got to get up and go, or it's going to get heated. There could only be there. You have to evaluate how much capacity you have for this relationship, and then create that distance so everybody can be cool.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have three things I like to tell people when it comes to forgiveness. And before we get into our race relations discussions, I think for person to person, just as a collective, as human beings, the first thing I always like to suggest is, and this one may shock a lot of people, and hopefully may make some people uncomfortable. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know. So when you're looking to forgive, like, how do I get over this offense? How do I get past this? Forgive yourself first for what you didn't know. Because a lot of times we get in relationships, we take bad business deals because we trusted the person. We believe this person had our best interest at heart. I believed I can trust my mother. I believe I can trust that business partner. I believed I can trust that coach. They betrayed me. First thing you need to do is forgive yourself for what you didn't know. You didn't know that this was an untrustworthy person or situation. Go ahead.
Sometimes that can sound cliche, and I've asked people or talk to people who don't really understand what forgiving yourself means. I like that you
Mhm.
use the word trust, because a lot of the times that's what it's about. Trusting
Yeah.
yourself to make the right decision. Because if you're not trusting yourself to make the right decision, because you may have made a bad decision
hmm
um, for whatever reason before, you got to know, like, hey, I am not who I was before. I'm more discerning, I'm more intelligent, or understanding in that specific situation. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that part of forgiving yourself has to a component that has to be trusting that you can make the right decisions going forward.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
and then also the other cliche is that I don't take losses. I either learn, I don't lose. I only learn. We're all learning. We're all learning. You didn't take a loss. You learned something new. You learned a better business practice. You learned to look at the fine print, to read the contract a little bit longer, a little bit more thoroughly.
Yeah.
You learn to take your time before you jump into a relationship. You learned something new here, and it hurt. but it was still a lesson learned for your benefit. So
Yeah.
number one,
Yeah.
forgive yourself for what you didn't know.
And just on that note, what you said that you didn't lose. Sometimes you do lose, and I think it's important to recognize that. But it doesn't have to be the death sentence, right? And to your point,
Right.
what is it that you can learn from that? So whether you lost a relationship, a job, or other, benefit or perk, it doesn't have to be your death sentence, and you
The
can learn.
story's not over.
Yeah.
Story's not over. Yeah, yeah. Number two, they don't have to say I'm sorry for you to move forward. They don't have to
Ooh,
say I'm
what you
sorry for you
mean?
to
But
move
if they ain't
forward.
sorry, what am I forgiving them for?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes closure is understanding that you deserve better.
Mm,
Yeah, that's what closure looks like. Understanding you deserve better.
yeah.
They don't have to say I'm sorry. And you can meet so many people that say, until my kids give me some respect, they can't come over, or I'm not going to call them. Like, no, they don't have to say I'm sorry.
It would be nice.
It would be nice.
It's not a
Yeah,
need, right?
yeah,
Doesn't that trickle back to the whole reconciliation or restoration? Like if you're looking for that, maybe there's a hope that it can get back some sense of normalcy, which is not wrong for wanting that, but also understanding what you're up against and what is that unforgiveness doing to you, right? But here's another one, Gregory. If you don't feel like in that instance that the unforgiveness is doing anything negatively to you, I mean, how do you even try to convince somebody in your practice that is still needed?
hmm hmm Anger sometimes is a positive motivator. I remember hearing many athletes say that they succeeded in sports because someone told them they were too short, they were too fat, and they couldn't make it. And so they used that negativity to fuel them to light that fire, to go harder in the weight room or to go harder on the field. Uh, Eventually, that right there causes burnout because a negative motivator does corrode your heart. Because when you're looking for motivation in the future, after that, you're looking for some type of negativity. You're trying to prove someone right. Michael Jordan is probably one of the biggest examples of that, one of the greatest athletes of all time. But what Michael Jordan would do, and a lot of you guys listening probably familiar with this, he would make up stories in his head about the competitors he was playing against. So in his head, whoever he was playing against, he would make up a story like they crashed his car or they slashed his tires, they broke out his window, they spit in his food so that he could get fueled by negativity. Now, it did pay off in the long run. He is considered to be the GOAT, but his fuel was negativity and it ate away at his humanity because no shade to Mr. Jordan if you're listening, but Michael Jordan is not considered to be a nice guy. People that are around him who have associated with him said he's arrogant, he's a snob, he's all of these things. He was the greatest to play basketball, but his mentality is so negative when you're around him that you don't want to be around him.
Yeah,
So yeah, you don't want to become that person.
yeah,
Also,
good stuff. Good stuff.
yeah. So my last little tip when it comes to forgiveness, if you're looking to forgive someone, I got 4 words that you should say out loud, and it generally helps a lot of people move forward. So if someone offended for a financial or personal reason, here's what you say to yourself. You look yourself in the mirror, and these are the 4 magic words. You say, "I've done that too. I've done that too." So next time you're driving down the highway, someone cuts you off, you get angry. I've done that too. Next time you find that someone was disingenuous, I've done that too. Next time someone took a shortcut and instead of going all the way with you, I've done that too. And what that does is that recognizes the humanity that they're not perfect, just like you. And so we're all learning and growing. And so the grace that you will want to receive when you show up, not as your best self, you're now triggered to give to that person. So I've done that too is a good way to
That's good,
start
man. It
forgiveness.
takes a high level of self-awareness,
hmm
honesty, and humility too, right? To
hmm
give somebody grace that done something to you and say, like, you know what, I did it too. You
I've
know,
done
so
it
let
too.
me grant him the same grace like that I need. So yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I'm guilty of that also. Yeah.
Are you? So Gregory, let's go to a commercial break, and we got a few people in the comments. We'll get back to them in a moment, but let's go to a commercial break and come back and continue the discussion.
All right.
Real men talk. If I had a group of brothers that I could confide in, a group of brothers that encourage me to be the best man possible, that hold me accountable for actions, but brothers that won't beat me down when I fall short. If I had brothers like that in my life, I'd open up more about my challenges. I wouldn't be afraid of being vulnerable and transparent. I'd be more deliberate in my actions and not scared of failure. I wouldn't act like everything is okay when I'm hurting inside. Sometimes it seems like there's an all-out assault from the world on black men, and hurtful words from my lady cut deep. I can't show my pain, 'cause if she knew that she hurt me, she would do it over and over again, hoping that each time cut deeper than the last. I do understand that women have challenges too. That's why I work so hard to be the strength she needs. But I need a band of brothers who understand that sometimes I simply want them to listen. Sometimes I need advice, but other times I need a shoulder to lean on. I need a band of brothers that create a safe space that gives us all a chance to talk about our fears. Because it's therapeutic when real men talk. Real men talk. Real men talk.
Real men talk, man. Gosh, can't stress that enough. Especially, we're black leaning on this podcast, of course. Unashamedly, unapologetically, we are black. I know I'm light skinned, but I am black. Um, we don't get brotherhood that goes past the skin. And real men talk is so significant because sometimes you need someone to go past the clothing and go deep inside to say, what is your heart feeling? Because all men is going to be confronted with fear, insecurity, and vulnerabilities. But those are the things that we're told don't talk about. Just keep pressing forward, as though it's some badge of honor to live in pain, to walk while bleeding, and it's not. You don't have to do it that way. There is literally nothing under the sun new. So whatever you're going through, emotionally, spiritually, physically, or financially, I guarantee you, there's another brother that's gone through it, and you need that freedom to discuss it so that your path can be easier, because you don't want to go through something just to go through it. You want to go through it to make it easier for someone else behind you. So
Yeah,
real men so
real men talk. That's an important part of it, man. Appreciate the way
yeah.
you described that. Yeah. So just a couple comments, but just for the sake of time, we'll get to 'em. Monica, appreciate you for tuning
Hey,
in.
Monica.
Yeah. Mogul, man, we're always glad to get the representative from Mogul jumping in and
Absolutely.
discussing things. Tamika, always a blessing to see her. Tamika says, absolutely, forgiveness is for me. And that's a hard concept, right, to grasp, because I think it's primarily for self, but an expansion of that is also relieving someone else who might be carrying a level of guilt for the harm that they've done to you too. So yes, it is primarily for self, which is different from the way it's usually taught, but it can also help relieve somebody else that's carrying the guilt for something that they did to you too. So
Hmm.
extension of
Yeah.
that. You comment on that?
You're absolutely right, because we don't know what guilt or shame or embarrassment someone may be carrying because they weren't able to show up the way they wanted to, and they feel guilty about it. And it's like, man, I just wish Gerard would say it's okay, it's all right, don't worry about it, we good. And giving that person an opportunity to go, it was a fumble, but it's okay. It lifts that weight off their shoulders. So yeah, it is primarily for yourself, but it also can help another person heal as well.
Hey, I like that you gave words to how to verbalize that, right? How to express that. So sometimes we don't even know how to say that I'm moving past that, because it sounds like I'm excusing what you did. So just thinking about that and see if you can expound on that a little bit. The language, how to define it, how to express that I do forgive you, but I'm not cool with what you did.
Yeah, yeah. You want to be specific and heartfelt. So you want to be able to say, Gerard, I know you said that you was gonna bring um the what was I gonna say? The cups in the place. What do you call that? The dishware? Yeah.
Yeah,
I know you said you're gonna bring the dishware to the cookout, but you weren't unable to do it. I just want to say it's okay. It's fine. It's not a big deal to me, and I don't think any less of you because of it. And let's just move past it. So you want to be specific and heartfelt. You want to acknowledge what the thing is, and then you want to speak from the heart about it. And once that is done, it generally takes 30 seconds, and then once that's done, the person is set free and they can move forward. Like,
yeah,
it's okay.
yeah. Because Dr. Marlon, where tuning in, he said, "Amen, on point." Appreciate you tuning in, and hey, we got to get Marlon back on the show too. So
hmm
sooner rather
He
than
must
later.
have been responding to something you said.
You know what, man? I wasn't going to claim it, but you probably right, man. Yeah. So yeah. So go ahead and continue the discussion, sir, please.
Yeah. So, this is the part where it's going to get heated and maybe a little bit controversial because Black people, we carry a little bit extra on our backs. One of our favorite quotes here is, "I love being Black. It's a little dangerous, but I love it." And so we want to discuss now specifically within the Black community as we face, the politics that are going on, and you don't have to go as far as politics as in your own neighborhood. How do you forgive your oppressor? How do you forgive the people who are continually fighting against you, who seem they don't want to let you win? Every time you overcome one obstacle, they put three more in front of you. How easy is it as Black people, or should we? That's a great question. Should we even forgive the people that are trying to hold us down, that are trying to um, prevent us from voting? They're practicing gerrymandering. They're telling us that our hair is inappropriate for corporate America, that our speech is unprofessional, that our children are thugs. Should we even forgive that?
Man, that's a heavy one, and I'm glad you framed it the way you did. Like this isn't just some simple oversight where they didn't invite us to church, to the barbecue with the
hmm
potato salad with raisins in it. This is so
hmm
a real hurt, right? So I
Yeah,
think it's important first to talk about again what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not.
yeah,
When we're talking about forgiving in those instances, we're not talking about telling them that it's okay for what they did. We're not talking about that we're giving them access to us. Again,
right.
if forgiveness is primarily for self, I think it'll be good if we can, Gregory, take a moment to expound on forgiveness for self. If that's the definition that we're focusing on, what does forgiveness for self mean in an instance like that?
Yeah. In the instance when you are oppressed and you're trying to forgive for yourself, um, that's a tricky one because I know in personal relationships, someone lies to you, someone betrays you, someone lets you down. You for you forgive because you don't want to be holding that anger, that
Yeah,
hostility in your heart anymore. And I think there is some overlapping there.
of
You know,
course.
uh, the racist cop that pulls you over for no reason besides just driving while Black. You don't want to carry that heart and anger. You don't want to carry that anger in your heart. So there is some legitimacy in that, but still, you have to be aware of there is a cause that I have to fight against. There is something out there in this world that I have to be aware of.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And just to expound on that, forgiveness, if it's for self, is also saying that it doesn't cripple me. What happened, the betrayal, like my life has to go on. If I'm a father, I still need to be, there for my children. If I'm a
Right.
spouse, I need
Yeah.
to be there for my mate. If I'm a child, my parents,
Right.
my community, right? So there are other duties out there that I am charged to walk. in grace in, right? And man, it's hard, Gregory. And I'm not trying to thumb my nose at anything that's going on, because follow me on Facebook. I'm pretty active in this space. And the anger is real. And the fact that I'm angry is nothing wrong with it. That's the accountability part, right? So we talked about the nature of the offender, accepting what you know about the people. So the other part of that is ensuring that we recognize and accept that that's everybody. It's not everybody, right? But
Right.
there's levels to it. There is the people who are passing the legislation, but there's also, let's be honest, the people who voted him in.
Right.
He voted
Yeah.
in somebody that's actually detrimental to our
Yeah.
being. Now,
That's the real problem.
here's the issue. Here's my issue with that. People try to say, well, I'm a conservative. Gregory, there was other options, man. If your mindset is, or your position is that you're a conservative, let's be honest, he's not a conservative. But even that dog don't hunt, because there were other alternatives to people with true conservative ideals. So now here we are reckoning with the truth. We got to be truth with it. And here it is, to your earlier point, when people are not even sorry, right? They don't apologize. But again, if forgiveness is for self, you got to figure out how to move in spite of and in light of the hurt that they continue to do, while we could try to figure out how to move next.
There has to be also a certain appreciation for people who are willing to stretch across the aisle and to network and to kind of bridge the gap in between. Years ago, you may not remember this, but years ago, there was a documentary made about Sammy Davis Jr., and it was called The Token. And Sammy Davis Jr., back in his heyday, an incredible performer, actor, singer, dancer, he did it all, he's multi-talented. But he hung out with a lot of white celebrities. And so there was Frank Sinatra, there was Jerry Lewis, and I forget the other people in the Rat Pack, Dean Martin. And so they called him the Token because even though he primarily associated with white people in his fame, on the back end, a lot of black people benefited because the Token made other white people comfortable with black people. Because Sammy Davis Jr. was the Token, he made it safer for other black people to come up front and to showcase their talents. What's your thoughts around the people who are willing to say, I'm willing to compromise a little bit because I see the greater good?
Yeah, there's this thing called dignity. Ignity, and
Okay.
I'm bringing that up because dignity preserves value. If you think about it in that sense, dignity preserves value. So if I'm having dignity in you and I dignity in myself, let's put it simply, I'm not for sale. So whatever it is that you're offering, that's supposed to better me, if I'm compromising my core values, and I think that's a lot of the issue, is that people aren't sure where their core values are. And now they become vulnerable or expendable, those values do. So I'm saying to your question, I don't want it, brother. And I'm gonna be honest, because I've been in that space where I forego my values and my principles for the sake of belonging. And here's the thing, it's like those old cartoons, Gregory. You remember when they put the little small snowball at the top of the hill, and by the time it gets to the bottom, it's big. That's how it's going to be.
Huge.
They don't stop. The minute that you show that you're for sale and that they could compromise your values and your principles, think about what that costs. What does that look like to me and you as friends? If you're, take a seat, give up some principles or compromise me so you can go sit at the table. Like, I don't want it, man. So that means I gotta suffer a little bit more. I'm gonna figure it out. And I think that's where a lot of people run into these challenges. Like, how much are you willing to sacrifice for a seat at the table with Caesar? I don't want to. I'm just be honest, man.
I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into that. I'm gonna talk about Jimmy Walker and Ryan Clark. Jimmy Walker, of course, is famous for being JJ on Good Times. And of course, there's a big controversy. Everybody knows it by now. John Amos and Esther Roll had a problem with the JJ character because they considered him to be a buffoon. Jimmy Walker, when he talks about that character, says he's a comedian. And as a comedian, there has to be someone who's willing to take the pie in the face. They have to, to be the butt of the joke. He said that was my role in that show. I was the character that took the pie in the face. I was the one who was the butt of the joke. And a lot of people, he was a very divisive character. Some people hated him, some people loved him. But largely, though, I think he's looked at as a buffoon by most people. But some people just it's just comedy. Uh, Even within the black community, what's your thoughts around? I get to Ryan Clark in a minute. What's your thoughts around us perpetuating these stereotypes, even within ourselves? Or should we call the other person out, saying, "Yo, listen, you need to be responsible for advancing us forward. So I need you to pull up your pants and not be such a buffoon because people are watching, and everything they're accusing us of being, you're acting like that."
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. At some point, let's take for instance where Trump put the Obama's face on apes,
Yeah.
and then you get some of his biggest defenders were black people. And
Right.
then, which is disingenuous and it's not intellectually honest if you have that discussion without the truth of the history of this nation, right? We know what it means when they put black people face on apes. They have traditionally and historically and maliciously compared us to those
We've seen
animals.
it too much for you
Yeah.
not to know.
So
Yeah.
when people downplay it or they try to get you to be silent and try to tell you that you, Gerard or Gregory, are overdoing it or taking it too far and it's not that serious, that's what
Overreacting.
they want you to do.
Mhm.
Now that's them dehumanizing you. They're taking your humanity away. And they
Yeah.
depend on those people, Gregory, who downplay it, who play into the stereotype and make fun of it and laugh at it. So now they can go further. For every person that makes an excuse or that made an excuse for Trump to do that, it just gave him permission to go further the next time. And it's not just those videos, it's the passing of legislation that takes our voting rights away, right? It's those benefits that help advance our education. It's DEI and civil rights movements out there that they're defunding. It's
Mhm.
not providing them a livable wage. It's not having representation in the decision makers, right? The legislators who pass laws. So every time that I hear somebody say, Gerard, you're taking it too far, or it ain't going to matter, they're depending on those type of people to downplay it
Right.
so you can keep advancing. So yeah, it's ridiculous.
We're talking about forgiveness, and I'm a big fan of Ryan Clark. He's the host of the Pivot, and he was
Yeah,
a
good guy.
ESPN sportscaster. Yeah, great commentator. Just seems like a really great guy. Maybe one day he'll come and join us here on The Floor Is Yours.
Yeah, let's
That'd
reach
be
out to
awesome.
him. Make it happen.
Yeah, we'll call him up. We'll ask him.
We got
Um,
the time, man. That wasn't no shot.
we know people. We know people.
Yeah.
He was discussing how he was let go. And in one point of the interview, he had said that he had gotten word from the higher ups that his outspokenness about the black community was making people feel uncomfortable.
Of course.
And so he evaluated his position there, and he thought, well, I'm opening doors for other black people. This is putting food on my table. Let me just lower the volume a little bit. Let me soft step a little bit more. And even though he tried to tweak his approach and tone it down and make it comfortable for the white people in the room, they still let him go. When we talk about forgiveness, is that a moment where he should forgive himself or the people that betrayed him? Because that's a tough pill to swallow. I tried to accommodate you so you felt comfortable, but you still betrayed me.
Man, there's so many nuances in that. And let me just say this. I don't think it was necessarily the white people.
Mm.
I think it was Stephen A. Smith.
Really?
Yeah, man, come on.
That's
man.
his dude, though. That's his dude.
On paper.
Okay.
On paper. But you got to think, man, they have polar opposite platforms. Here it is. Stephen A. is laying down and shucking and jiving and borderline cooning for proximity, for a seat at the
So
table.
you're not a fan.
Stephen A. No, I never. Let's be honest. Even before he started showing what he's willing to do for access and for proximity and more money, I wasn't a fan of him anyway. But
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. There's plenty of things on TV or in life that I'm not a fan of. So that doesn't take anything away from who he is. But when he began to shuck and jive and perform and backstab and desire more money, it was just like, when is enough enough? Well, money is infinite. And now it's not just the money. Now you want the power and the influence. And he has ran cover for Trump and the right side of politics that are detrimental to Black people. He has ran cover for them, and he don't apologize. And what's crazy is what's worse than what he's doing is his justification for it. He gets out there and try to explain and show and reason why Black people should do this and not challenge Trump like that. Man, it's one of the oldest cooning tricks in the book if we just want to be honest about it. Why do he hold us at a higher standard to the president of the United States? The biggest platform on this planet, but he's placating to him. Oh, you're not being professional talking to him like that. Like, dude, are you crazy? Are you ridiculous? So that's the other thing I'm saying. There's more nuances to it than that. I don't think that it was because of Ryan Clark was fired because of white people feel. I think it was Stephen A. And Stephen A. is a very influential person at ESPN, and we've been knowing that. So, but as far as should Ryan Clark forgive? I mean, the standard is the standard. But again, we're going to go back to what does forgiveness look like. I think if it was someone who's getting started and trying to make their name and put food on the table of their families, that'll be probably a little bit more involved and passionate. But the dude's had a great career. I look at what he's done and what he did as a great sacrifice, and I thank him for it. And maybe that was his season to get in and do what he can to bring voice to our community and bring light to some of the injustices that we're seeing, right? And he used his platform to do that. I'm thankful for him, and maybe that was his season, and it's time for him to move on. So I wouldn't necessarily be so worried about forgiveness in that sense, more than he had his opportunity as the season. Now maybe it's time for something greater. That old saying is that sometimes God has to bring a storm to clear the way and make path for something new. And the opportunity in season for something different now.
I think also that brings up the notion of how to have less offense in your life. When Ryan Clark was talking about being let go, he became emotional when he discussed how he tried to placate and tap dance for the man in order to keep his job, because he saw what he thought was a bigger picture, how he's opening doors for other people, Black commentators, to be on like himself. But he came emotional thinking, I did that and they still let me go. And my biggest takeaway from that is live your life in such a way that you do retain your dignity. So if people do not like you or people are against you, they are against you for who you authentically are.
I like that.
I like that. I would rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I pretend to be.
Because you calm down, and soften your tone, and it's all for naught.
It's all for naught. If you're gonna hate it or love it, I'm gonna be me. And I think that gives us greater security of less offense, because at the end of the day, we're still going to take some slings and some arrows, of course.
Yeah.
But when you know that you are living with dignity and integrity, and you didn't compromise your values, you lessen the opportunity to be offended.
And I think that's key, what you just said, Gregory. You didn't compromise your values. And for me, at the end of the day, I can look myself in the mirror. I can lay down. I can talk to my kids. I can look at those closest proximity to me and say that I didn't sell out. And here's the issue about that, right? Not only can you trust me because I stand on something meaningful that's beyond self. Here's the ironic and twist. They don't trust you, because here's the thing. If Gerard would betray his own people for $1, What are you going to do
Mhm.
with them if the need arises or it came time for them to abandon ship?
Yeah.
Nobody's trusting you. Now you done flip flop turned on everybody and you're out there looking crazy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
I think when it comes to forgiveness in our community, it is important for us to forgive one another as well. We can't ignore. I think it would be intellectually, um, what's the word, neglectful for us to not acknowledge that sometimes we cause each other pain as well, and that it's important for us to um, be our brother's keeper. You know, we fight. The Bible says we fight not against flesh and blood, but we fight against heavenly principalities or in heavenly realms. And
Yeah.
so, my problem is not my brother or my sister in Christ. My problem is this spirit and this mentality that I have to go up against. And how do I fight that? I fight that with prayer, and I fight that by being a positive example. I personally believe the best thing in life that you can be is an example. And so we have to go out there in our communities, whether it's in Walmart, not wearing bonnets and sleepwear to the grocery store, just to be an example to other people that here's a classier way, a better way of doing it, of thinking, being, and doing life.
Man, you want to know what I think? I'm
Okay.
glad you
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
man. So you know it's crazy. I had this conversation with somebody a few weeks ago about bonnets or whatever we wear in public. And it's easy to pinpoint what's perceived to be wrong with us. It's just natural. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying this is right or wrong. That it's just happened. But I look at now I'm not talking about the one who's doing it out of genuinely love and concern, because let's be honest, perception can be everything, right? And it matters what if it was just me, it didn't matter. But if I got to go out and interact with the public at the store, on a job interview, I do have to adhere to societal norms, right? But Gregory,
Yeah.
let's talk about let's be truthful. To those who are hypocritical in their application of what's appropriate, for them to once tell you that be polite, be professional, treat people right, hard work, and you can be the president of the United States. Now you can tell people be the worst person possible, be accused of some of the most heinous crimes possible, and you can be the president of the United States, and not only be president of the United States, but once, but be the front runner 3 different times and win twice. So my point of that is just to say this: those who are applying unequal expectation on people for abundance or whatever it is that we want, or wave caps, whatever it is in public, but at the same time they excuse the president of the United States, and that's happening. It's not just a hypothetical. We see a lot of people that do. Let's be honest, he got 77 million votes. Obviously, decorum and tradition and norms meant nothing to them in this position versus somebody just going to the grocery store to get some groceries. And that's the issue right there. It's just the breakdown on decency and even the Bible talks about favor, how we put favor on people, or partiality, right? And it's wrong. Partiality turns into a different number of discriminations, whether it's gender, whether it's religion, whether it's age, but especially right now by race. And
Hmm.
and that's the bigger issue, right? So I just want to make sure that we understand. I'm not saying that we don't push some traditions and honor and
Hmm.
respect and how professional like we show ourselves, but let's
Yeah.
put equal fair application on those things right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, of course,
I'm not
we're
so much
discussing
I'm
that
sorry.
the HBCUs that recently set the standard that bonnets, sleepwear, and wave caps cannot be worn inside the classroom. And even with that, some people are for it, some people are against it, because what we consider to be common decency is subjective. I remember when you and I were, in our teenage years, rap music was hitting big, and it was considered to be obscene.
Yeah.
And now it's so embedded in the culture you can't go a day without hearing a rap song. And so culture changes over time, and moral standards changed
Yeah,
over time.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and what's acceptable it also changes because back in our day, you would never think about wearing spandex. We would never think about wearing spandex or athletic gear
Yeah.
to just out and about. Now you can't go a day without seeing it.
But you know the thing is, since we do reference scripture a lot, there's this one where he talks about the religious leaders, the people in
Hmm.
general, where they take the commandments of man and act with the commands of God, the
Hmm.
traditions of men, and act like they're the commands of God.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
speaks specifically about that. Now, how we apply that in our daily lives, again, I think is relative. You got traditions that's societal norms that I think are important, and they give order and give discipline. But if we're ready to crucify people for bonnets, and I'm not talking about in the classrooms, I get dress codes and norms, and
Hmm.
that stuff is important. But again, the application of it, especially those who excuse some of the most heinous, disrespectful, unorthodox behavior from especially those in power, but ready to bring the hammer down on people for, expressing their culture, the ethical position with the hairs or dress and all that. I think we got to be real careful about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. That's great.
yeah,
How we
yeah.
looking in the comments? I hadn't looked at them.
Man, we got another one that popped up. This is our sister from another mister. Oh, I see. She said, and the 12 disciples rode with Jesus. I don't know what comment or what discussion she was. If she's listening, Misha, let us know what that was too. But yeah, she said that. So that's where we are with that. But we really at the end. We had an hour. So this is
Okay.
where we can let you come with your words of inspiration, wrap up the discussion first, of course, but leave us with
Yeah.
some thoughts on how we can be better at forgiving, but also understanding what forgiveness is so that we can just do our part to make society better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Forgiveness is one of those practices that is never ending. So for anyone who's listening right now, you stumbled and you failed, and your journey with forgiveness, and one day you're great with it, the next day you're not. I want to stress to everyone that is completely normal. On Monday you think you're over it, but Tuesday a memory comes back and you get triggered. Forgiveness is an ongoing practice. It is not a switch that you flip and it's immediately settled. No, there are some
Mhm.
offenses that never leave you. You just learn how to manage it. I'll say it again. There's some offenses that never leave you. You just learn how to manage it. And so managing it looks like some good days and some bad days. Here's my biggest takeaway. I want everyone to hear me when I say this is you can't fly into your future while carrying the weight of your past. And so, if we're constantly looking back to the offense that has happened to us in the past, then that slows us down in our momentum for moving forward. And so, do yourself a favor. As much as it is possible to you, for you to do, you want to practice living unoffended. And so, some days, and I mean exactly what I just said. You want to practice it. I still feel angry. I still feel that resentment, but I'm going to behave in such a way that I'm not. Our brain is elastic. You can literally program your brain to think the way you want it to think. And if you were to act and speak in such a way that you're not offended, guess what? Your brain is going to catch up to that. You can't fly into your future carrying the weight of your past. And the more often you practice and you say that you're not offended, while of course doing some work with a coach or a counselor, it can happen for you. You don't have to be stuck in that prison of unforgiveness forever. You can be set free.
Man, let me snap the finger like we do for IC, man. That was good, brother. Like it
Thank you,
always
sir.
is, man. And I'll just real quick and ask you to follow up and check me on what I'm saying. But I know we've been heavy on this discussion, heavy on the front end, on the person that needs to do the forgiving. And
Yeah,
sometimes that can seem that we're excusing the offender. The
go ahead.
Bible talks about, to be sure, offense comes to this world, but woe to those that offense comes to. Sometimes in this
Yeah,
society, we put more weight on the person offended and we excuse the offender. And then we'll chastise the person that things were done to and tell them that they need to get over it and have thicker skin and be stronger and
yeah,
don't get down. And all that could be true. But what about the offender? And I'm saying that because there's this thing called accountability, right?
yeah,
And if we want to be just a holistic mindset towards this forgiveness. We got to make sure that we talk about the offender and what accountability means, right? And specifically, what we end the discussion on, Gregory, is the reckoning that's needed in the Black community. Yeah, all this shucking and jiving, brother, it's going to come to an end. It's going to come time to where you got to pay a price. Betrayal, you talked about, from those closest to you, hurt the most. And
it does.
But what do you do when those closest to you sold you for proximity? And this is not just some simple difference of policies. This is your well-being, right? These are people who are literally trying to attack your well-being, your dignity, your ability to provide for your family, provide for self. That day of reckoning is going to come one day, brother. And I think that we got to start having that conversation. What does reckoning look like when it happens, when that day comes? When the powers that be change and that level of influence is gone. All those people that supported and excused and attacked you for being too passionate, for trying to protect them, which is crazy, right? That day going to come, and I think we're going to have that discussion one day. And maybe that's good for a future podcast, but the day of reckoning is going to come. And forgiveness, if that's the standard, forgiveness is going to have to happen. But again, what does forgiveness look like in those instances?
That's a great way to end. The Bible says when your brothers fall into sin, those that are holy and mature should come to him and to restore him. Restoration can happen, or restoring another person that committed the offense. But this is the point I want to make clear. It doesn't have to come from you. You can only control what you can control.
That's good.
So that person that has offended you, that person who has left you out hanging, that person sold you out, disrespected you, treated you poorly, you can only control what you control, and that is your personal safety and your well-being. You take responsibility for that. Let those that are holy and mature and are spiritual do the other work. That is someone else's job, not yours.
Yeah, that's good.
And so when it comes to the reckoning, here is the hard pill to swallow as Black people. When we get to heaven, we're going to see slave owners. We're going to see Klansmen. We're going to see skinheads.
Ex-Klansmen. Ex-skinhead.
What we will see were people who did things that we felt like were unforgivable. But guess who they're going to see? They're also going to see us, people they thought were unforgivable also. And so the mind that we want to have is the mind of Christ, because God doesn't have stepchildren or grandchildren. He only has sons and daughters. So when he looks down on earth, the worst of us and the best of us, he says, that's my son and that's my daughter. And I want to help them with whatever struggle they have. And so that is ultimately the mindset that we want to have. But in the meantime, while we are here on earth and we're trying to figure this thing out, you can only control what you can control. That's your well-being. You focus on that. The restoration, put that in somebody else's hand, because that's not your concern.
Especially mine. And that's the word.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all so much. Thank you so much for the comments. The comments are literally our favorite part of the show. You guys are great. We appreciate you. Come back next week. Next week, we got a heavy one. We got another topic that everybody deals with. We're going to be talking about grief. And grief is a part of life. And unfortunately, all of us are going to have to deal with it. So we might as well get prepared for it and how to overcome it. So it's going to be a special episode of the Floor is Yours podcast. We don't want you to miss it. Tune in, follow, like, and subscribe to the show so you can hear the details about the upcoming shows. We want you guys to keep the comments coming. Gerard and myself, we check those comments always. And so you just might get a shout out from him or me. So please keep the conversation coming. Even if you're watching a month from now, 2 months from now, or even 2 years from now, please keep it coming. We love y'all. We appreciate you so much. And until next time, good people, peace, love, hair grease. We out.
This one here really do it for you. Baby, look, for